For the pie crust, we can take the time to work on the peaches. So the two things you're gonna need are a nice cold water bath and a pot of water that's at a rolling boil, like this one. So then what you need to do is take your peach, then just cut a little cross in the bottom. And then we're going to check them in. You really only need to have them in for a good 30 or 45 seconds. This is just to get the skin off of the peach. We don't actually want to cook it or anything like that. So I like to do about 4 at a time because it doesn't cool the water down too much. So once they're done, just use your little scoop to scoop them out, and then put them in your water bath to cool them down. Because again, we don't want them to cook. We just want it to loosen that skin. Now we'll just continue doing that for the rest of them until they're all good. Okay, so here's the end result of blanching our peaches. So now all you have to do is take one of these, and you can just pull the skin off of it. So this is what you're going to do for all of them. We're just taking the skin off because whenever you make a pie and you still have the skin, it doesn't really have a very good flavor, and it also has this kind of gross texture. Our pie crust here has been sitting in the fridge for a little over an hour. So now we're ready to roll it out. So the first thing we're going to have to do with our 8x13 is put some spray oil in. And then we're going to line it with parchment paper. So it's sticking out a bit, which is good. The other piece is going to be a little bit longer because I need something to actually pull the pie out when it's done. So given the fact that we're using parchment paper, we don't actually have to spray the side with oil. However, I find that it makes the parchment stick better, and it makes it that much easier to actually get it out once your product is done. So that's this one. These pie shells are actually made out of Teflon coating, so they come right out, so we don't actually have to do anything to them. Next step here is just going to be to roll out our pie dough. So I got my trusty rolling pin here. I'm going to coat that a little bit in flour. Flour is going to be your friend through this activity. So the last thing you want is for your pie dough to be sticking to the counter. So in this case, we just have to roll it out to approximately the size of our long can. So one of the things, I'll flour the top of my dough, spread that on, and then turn it over. So this is kind of something you can only do when your dough is still thick. Once it starts thinning out, it becomes a lot more difficult and then it'll rip. So unfortunately, pie dough isn't one of those doughs that you can just kind of press together. Once it's ripped, you actually have to start over again. Great, so that's looking good. Here we are. So now what I'm going to do here is just cut around the bottom so we get a nice exact piece of dough. Okay. So there we are on the bottom. So that's going to be the base of our pie. So this right here is 11 peaches worth. I had to throw a couple of them out because they didn't work out too well. So to this, we're going to add a little bit of almond extract because I'm going to make kind of a peach almond pie. So put in about 1 to 2 teaspoons. And then a little bit of cinnamon. So however much you want. I usually do about 1 or 2 teaspoons. Also, of 35% cream. This is not a low-fat cake or pie, as you would. Half a cup of the vanilla yogurt again. And we also have a quarter of a cup of flour. And last, I've got almost half a cup of sliced almonds, but I'm going to mix that in after I finish mixing all this stuff. So just kind of mix this all together. I don't want to put the almonds in too early, otherwise it's going to break them up a little bit. I want them to be mostly solid, and then just toss the almonds in. So we're just going to lightly fold the almonds in, because I want it to be mixed but not broken. There we go. So now we're going to add this to our pans. There we go. So that's the base of this one. So now we have our other 4 pies. So we're just going to start filling them up. I may actually have to cut some of these peaches in half. Otherwise it's going to be a little bit difficult to actually get them to fit into this container. There we go. So we're going to fill it up, but not too full, because we're going to want to put a piece of dough on the top here. So a lot of the stuff in here is optional, like the almonds are optional, the almond extract is optional. You don't have to put in the cinnamon or any of that stuff. You could just put in the cream, or you could just put in the peaches and the flour for a very basic recipe. I just like the richness that putting the cream in gives you. So I'm just going to put these off to the side for a minute. Okay, so for the topping for the horizontal one that I'm doing, I'm going to do a crumble topping. So in here I have half a cup of butter, and then to that I'm going to put in 1 cup of oats, half a cup of flour, half a cup of brown sugar, and a quarter of a cup of ground almonds. It's just kind of mix it up by hand and create a crumble. So again, I use the cut the butter into small pieces because it's going to be easier to mix it all in. So you're going to want to mix it in until you have little chunks that aren't just butter. It's going to be made up of all the different parts of it. Okay, so seems good. So when you look at it, you've got little chunks right here, but when you look at it, it has butter and oats and the sugar and stuff in it, so that's exactly what we want. So now we're going to take this and just pour it on top and just even it out. So just spread it out, make sure you have pretty even coverage. Once the other pies are done, we're going to do them all together. You can see that when I cut it, I made sure that it was overhanging a little bit. The reason for that is a lot of times after you're done rolling the dough and you cut it, it'll retract a little bit as the gluten starts to relax. So I wanted to make sure that there was still a little bit extra so that I would have a nice overhang that would let me put this top crust on. Then you just lay this on the top, and we're going to sandwich it on. So you can do the little fork thing around the edges. That's how sometimes when you see them in the store or at the bakery, they have that little pattern. It's just because someone decided to run a fork around the edge. There. So then after you've done that, just take your sharp knife and cut around. There we go. So then the last thing you have to do before you put them in is you're going to create a little bit of a vent. So you always see these little cuts in the pies. The reason for that is when the filling starts to cook, all the water content and it's going to evaporate. So then it's got to come out here, otherwise it'll probably come out the sides. So this will become unsealed, and then it'll just kind of open up and the filling will ooze out, and that's not really what you want. And here's the end products. Just cook them to a nice golden brown color, and there you go.